Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Gizmo, your neurospicy demonic bookworm, here with my first ever book review. For my first ever book review on this channel, I thought I'd go with a fitting subject, since this week has been the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz, and it's been International Holocaust Memorial Day. Yep, I'm dropping myself in the deep end with this one, but you know what they say, go big or go home. I've been participating in the Popsugar reading challenge now for coming up a decade, and every year I challenge myself to finish all of the prompts. For those of you who might not know what the Popsugar reading challenge is, every year you're given 50 prompts and the challenge is to find books that fit those prompts and to read them all in the year. Currently I've achieved 11 out of 50 prompts, so I'm doing quite well considering it's only the end of January. I'm about a fifth of the way through, if not a little bit over. I think the main reason is that I have fibromyalgia and the winter is always hard on my body, so I usually end up reading when I can't do much else, whether that's a paperback or an ebook. I picked The Boy in the Striped Pajamas by John Boyne for the prompt, a book about an unlikely friendship. If you're interested in the Popsugar Reading Challenge 2025, I'll leave a link in the description below. The Boy in the Striped Pajamas is a 2006 historical fiction novel by John Boyne, as I mentioned before, who's an Irish novelist. It's received much criticism, mainly due to it being a fiction novel that people often mistake for fact, and because it was written by an Irishman who had no experience of the Holocaust personally. It tells the story of a young German boy called Bruno, whose father is commandant in a Nazi concentration camp. Bruno is completely unaware of what his father does, and when he has to move to just outside the concentration camp, he discovers what he thinks is a farm and is run by people who wear striped pajamas. He develops an unlikely friendship with a boy from the concentration camp called Shmuel, who was detained for being Jewish. It's a story of childhood innocence and friendship, a story that shows children are not born prejudiced, but they're moulded by what they see and hear from others. It tackles the question, can two people who are so different be friends? The answer is undoubtedly yes. It was made into a film in 2008. It has also been made into a ballet in 2018 and an opera in 2023. Personally, I've only ever seen the film. The ballet could be quite emotive, but for them to make an opera about it, just why? While it's never mentioned in the novel itself, it mentions that Bruno can't pronounce certain words, so he calls the place that he lives Outwith, which can be inferred to mean Auschwitz, and describes the leader of his country as the Fury, which can be inferred to mean Führer. The story itself is very emotive, especially when Bruno sees things in a childlike wonder, while the reader can work out what's actually happening behind the scenes. An example of this is when he gets upset because Shmuel has so many other children to play with on his side of the fence, while he has no one to play with. From the reader's perspective, you can see that it's not a good thing, and you know why all of those children are there on the other side of the fence. There are quite a few instances of this where your heartstrings are pulled. As with all of my book reviews, I'll try to keep this video spoiler free in case you want to read it for yourself. But I'll say that the ending was unexpected, and I'm usually very good at working out the endings of books. While the book was never banned formally, it has come under a lot of scrutiny from academics, survivors, and the media. HolocaustEducation.co.uk published some research in 2016 that said a third of schools in the UK are using the film and the book version of The Boy in the Striped Pajamas as a tool for teaching about the Holocaust, and it has led to people having skewed views of what happened back then, because the book is full of historical inaccuracies and the misplaced emphasis on Bruno as opposed to the plight of Shmuel. I've left a link to the Holocaust Education website and the research in the description below if you want to read it. It spawned a lot of debate, with people calling the author's depiction of Shmuel insensitive, as he is depicted as a 2D character with little backstory so we don't feel as attached to him as we do to Bruno. I think in the book we get one whole conversation where Shmuel talks about his life before the camp, and then little hints throughout the book, but nothing major, whereas the entire book is from Bruno's perspective, so we get a lot more information about him. It has led to some people, mainly secondary school kids, being taught it at school and having this book as the only source they have, to say that they felt more sympathy for Bruno than they did for Shmuel, despite knowing that Shmuel would have been going through absolute hell. Another major criticism that's often made is the fact that despite John Boyne saying that he's done a lot of in-depth research into the Holocaust, he has no personal experience of the Holocaust, so is not qualified to write a book about it, especially a fiction book. Despite the criticism, I must admit that the book is well written, and you do feel sympathy for the characters due to the way the book is written, with it being from a child's point of view. I think in order to read this, you need a basic understanding of what the Holocaust is, what was happening in Nazi Germany at the time, for the book to have an impact on you. It should not be used as a teaching tool to explain the atrocities that occurred. I think that it could be used to teach as an interpretation as to what happened because it paints a vivid picture, but at the same time the teacher should be emphasising that this is a work of fiction and therefore it should be taken as a work of fiction. From a reader's standpoint, it is definitely worth reading as long as you remember that it is fiction. The book is well written and a small book to get through if you're looking for a short read. I would recommend it as a book to read to get a sense of what it was like, but for a historical account of the Holocaust, I would recommend reading one of the many books out there written by survivors of the Holocaust who have first-hand experience. I've just finished reading one of those actually, called A Gypsy in Auschwitz, How I Survived the Horrors of the Forgotten Holocaust by Otto Rosenberg. A story of a teenager who was passed from pillar to post through several concentration camps, including the infamous Auschwitz and Bergen-Belsen. It is definitely worth reading and brings the past to life in vivid detail, as well as how he coped when he got out, with the survivor's guilt, as the majority of his family didn't survive Auschwitz. On the whole, I'd give The Boy in the Striped Pajamas an 8 out of 10 because it is a good read. Just remember that it is fiction. If you do want a book reviewed or a book that you think I would enjoy, I'll be keeping an eye on the comments. If I see a particular book crop up in the comments again and again, then I'll cover it if it piques my interest. Remember, keep reading.